Focus. You focus. Okay, so the other day I was on LinkedIn. Actually, I got some LinkedIn like push notifications in my email. One earlier in the week, I saw it, I applied to it. A job, I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of out of my comfort zone. Maybe don't have as much experience as I would like, but I still applied. Later in the week, I saw another job, and this one was for a bigger company, or just a big company as well, but a job I think I was like perfectly aligned for, so I applied for that as well. It took me like 5 hours, and after I applied to the second job, I realized that like these were like at some very big corporate companies, and the realization was kind of setting in that like I'm not a corporate girly. And what I mean by that is that like I have not worked in a very corporate environment. I did work for ESPN for a decade, but I was working at a production company that produced shows for ESPN. So I was not headquartered in Bristol. I was in DC with a very small company. And then as I was on LinkedIn, I kept kind of, like looking through the job descriptions, and then I was like looking at like people that work there, and just being on the app or on the site, and I was just like, am I ready for like corporate life? Like, am I built for that? I'm gonna be 36 in a few days, and I've never really worked in a corporate environment, so I don't know if I can hack it. I'm trying to, it's all just like hitting me at once that like there are some jobs that I admittedly want to go for, but I don't know if I want to dive into that type of, I shouldn't say that type of culture, because you don't know what the culture is until you're in it. But from outside looking in, a very structured corporate environment. Yeah. And let's be honest, a lot of jobs that aren't white collar or very corporate are pretty toxic. There's toxicity obviously even in TV. That's like a well-documented thing. Like, there's a lot of abusive language and all types of stuff that goes on in media, and corporate life isn't the only place toxicity shows itself, but it's like a different type of animal that I have not personally dealt with for long periods of time. As I was having these thoughts, as the universe will have it, I ended up listening to this podcast. Glassdoor has an official podcast called The Lonely Office. It's really, really good. And they had an episode called Why Workplace Satire Hurts So Good. And I just like happened to listen to it right after I was having those thoughts, after I applied to the jobs on LinkedIn. If whatever, if I was cut out for corporate, whatever. And in this episode, they talked with a guy named Henry Markin. He's the director of social media content creator at WonderFan. And he's known, hold that thought. Maintenance man, gotta make sure my ice machine is still working. They fixed it, it is. But yeah, where was I? Okay, so he's known on LinkedIn for blending sports fandom, comedy, and office culture, and kind of just making fun of that. And I mean, they just unpacked so much of the fears that had kind of been brought up when I was applying to the jobs. And I think he hit on some of the, like we were talking about how other cultures, other workplace cultures can be just as toxic. Like, but his point was saying that there's just a certain way that corporate environments kind of handle themselves. Editing Serafina here. I clearly worked in corporate environments before, but what I'm trying to get at here is that I'm not sure if I should continue in that direction, or I should try to find a career that's more aligned with, or a job setting that's more aligned with how I want to work, or if that's just kind of unreasonable at this point in time. And what Henry was getting at is that sometimes corporate cultures aren't as receptive to other company cultures. For instance, sports. That's my background. So I'm a little concerned that my laid-back nature won't translate to other working environments. Like, so much like if you played for the Patriots and you're in a program that's you know, they run a tight ship and you're playing under Bill Belichick and you're coming from like a great school where you're rambunctious and you're this and you're that, and you come into this system and you have to kind of conform to how they're doing things, and you want to because they're winning, but at what cost? You know what I'm saying? Like, what are the trade-offs? A lot of people are like, yeah, I will trade like, you know, like 7 rings for not being able to show my personality or, you know, have a personality at all. Like, sure, it's a trade-off. I'm just wondering if I would be able to do that. That's all. That's all. Back to the video. I also think like no matter what, I'm going to be on a learning curve. So I need to like kind of get over this idea that, I say that because I don't see myself just jumping back into another producing job or another producing role. I could very well jump back into being a producer and jumping back into that role, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. So if we're being realistic, it's like I'm going to be adjusting to a new job, a new atmosphere, no matter what. Yeah, I think I'm just trying to like pick my heart in a sense, you know. So for all my corporate girlies, guilies, girlies, guilies, baddies, let me know your thoughts, because he also mentioned in that episode that he's now in a corporate environment. Even though he makes fun of corporate, he's actually like in a more corporate environment. And something that he's sensing is that, you know, AI in particular has been coming for creative jobs for years. And now it's kind of crossing over to more corporate white collar jobs. And what he's sensing is that the environment is a little bit more welcoming to people who aren't, you know, the creative sides, because now everybody's looking for, you know, a creative producer and storytellers and this and that type of thing. For years, like, I feel like if you were a social media manager, if you were like a marketer or whatever, it's like, not that you were looked down on or anything like that, but your job just was not seen as valuable. And now there's, he's saying that he's sensing that there's more of a welcoming environment, because the barrier for entry into being a creative, into like, you know, making YouTube videos or writing, whatever, is very low now. And so those people are able to, people who usually work in more corporate environments are like more able to access creativity in ways that they weren't able to before. Because if you're on a ChatGPT or on a Claude, it's like they're writing LinkedIn articles and these think pieces, ironically, you know, like thought leaders using chat to, you know, whatever that, or Canva, and, you know, all these type of things that kind of help us with our creativity. There's a more of an appreciation for people who work in the arts or in media and that type of thing, because now they see how difficult these things are to do in practice. And so, I don't know, maybe I'm overreacting, and maybe the environment in corporate America, or corporate in general, is not, is changing. Maybe it's just changing. So I think that would be interesting to, even just to try, like even just to like get my foot in the door, because a part of me also doesn't feel like I'm going to just like be this freelancer forever. We'll talk about that in a second, of like kind of what I'm doing right now. But I want to be a business owner. I want to be a small business owner. I also want to have experiences. And I think being able to do both, and also, let's be honest, like build wealth, I want to be able to have my own thing on the side always. But there's nothing wrong with also like having the job that brings in like the big bucks, you know what I mean? So, and I think that if I can get a job in that sense, or in an area that I want to, and then also have my freelancing business, that would be like ideal for me. All right, let's talk about what I'm doing now. So currently I am learning a new skill, you guys. She's learning. She's in school. Not really. So I joined a freelance community, and I'm teaching myself and learning from the other girls in the community how to be a creative strategist. I'm old. Call me old, because when I heard the term creative strategist, of course I'm like, oh, like someone who helps you, you know, ideate or whatever, come up with concepts, this and that. Especially like I'm video focused, so I'm like, oh, video. And in the landscape now, and correct me if I'm wrong, like creative strategists are people who create ads or paid ads for like Meta and Instagram and stuff like that. Blew my mind. I've always been very intrigued by marketing, and I feel like this is a nice entry point, or could be a nice entry point for me to kind of like see if it's something I want to do in the future. I love commercials. I love ads. I love seeing how brands communicate their story without saying too much, or you know, whatever, just how they want to run a campaign and why. I just really have always like enjoyed marketing, but never really explored it. So I'm trying to learn creative strategy. I put a spec ad, like portfolio together, and I put it in like, you know, the group the other day to like see if other girls could like, you know, audit it for me or whatever. And when I tell you, I knew it wasn't good, but I was like, that was confirmation that I still have a lot to learn. It just wasn't that great. So I'm gonna start all over on that, which is fine. I have nothing but time. What else if I have to do? I spent a lot of time on that portfolio too. So I think I'm gonna like give it a rest for a second and focus on something else. Like for instance, my good friend Claude the other day, I was talking to Claude after I applied to the LinkedIn jobs and got a little like imposter syndrome, realizing that like 500 people applied to these jobs. These were like, you know, I don't want to say who, but like these were like jobs that, you know, were obviously highly coveted. My resume, if I'm being honest, my resume doesn't do justice to like the breadth of my experience and the things that I can do. And so, and I know that now, I think I've known that for a while, if I'm being honest, but now even more so, it's kind of glaring. So I had to do a lot of work. That's why it took me so long to do the application, because like I have to do a lot of work to kind of explain my background and explain the types of things I did at my company, because I was there for a decade, but I worked on like 4 different shows. So it's like I was constantly learning and, you know, being creative and coming up with new concepts, and we were always learning how to fly. I had to learn how to fly, you know, do streaming during like 2020. Like none of us had to deal with working from home, being a producer, sitting in the chair every day, being a TV producer. You had to figure out how to do that from home. It's like I have a lot of like skills and things I feel like I've learned that now my resume I feel like doesn't show. And so I have to do a lot of work on the back end to like explain that, you know, I can do this type of thing. But and also I have like so many other interests that I think it just doesn't show up on a resume. I have to like explain it. Like I'm a writer. I've, you know, written TV pilots, and I write short stories, and I've written animation with some friends. It's like I have these things. But talking to Claude, back to her, their suggestion was basically like, you know, you need something that like you can actually hang your hat on. Like you have a ton of experience. Like that's not the issue. It's communicating it, and then 2, having something that's like a real portfolio piece that I can link to. Because sometimes like on these applications you'll see is like, oh, your website or something. It's like, dang, I wish I like had something that like I could link them to or show them, you know, like outside of just the TV stuff, like the other creative outlets that I've been doing. And I don't really have that. So I think I'm gonna work on that. I'm gonna either do like a limited podcast series, something, you know, or something along with animation, since that's really what I would like to get into one day. I don't know, but I feel like I just need like a piece to show what I really like can do, and or like where I see myself also just going in the future. So that's gonna be high on the priority list. I'm going home in a few days for my birthday. I didn't know what to do this year. I'm turning 36. I don't know what people do for 36. A lot of girls go to Miami. I thought about that, but I'm a terrible planner. I just don't know. Like the ice machine is working. I told y'all. I want to make some content there. I think I could do that. I think that'd be kind of fun, kind of cute to show something different than good old DMV, Maryland area. And to add, and to like give it more context, it's like I really want to have a full-time job by the summer. Honestly, by like June, I want either steady income from my freelance, or I really, really would like a full-time job. So that's really what I'm working toward. I'm working toward building the freelance, finding full-time employment, also just like having a standout or standalone like portfolio piece that I can add to my resume, or just link when I'm applying to jobs. Oh yeah, and not to mention YouTube. Like to me also, if I could be consistent, I don't know what it is, but sometimes it's hard for me to just sit down and get in front of the camera and talk. But if I can be consistent with this channel, I also feel like this is something that will help my creativity. That isn't necessarily for anybody but me, and to also help other people who are also in a career pivot, you know, kind of encouragement, or just us talk and vent, I don't know, but just, you know, kind of create community around. A lot of people are out of work right now, if you haven't heard. A lot of us are out of work, so it would be nice to just kind of like maybe just talk about that and hear from other people who are also trying to figure out what their next move is. You know, I'm not like midlife yet, so not like, you know, my next act type of thing, like, but sort of, you know. Okay, so that's the update. I will let you know if I hear back from these jobs. Probably won't, but I will let you know, keep you updated on that. In the meantime, thank you for watching and listening, and stay encouraged. I will talk to you next time.